What's up, y'all? Let's just get right into this. Um, Quite the camera angle, huh? It is what it is. We are where we are right now to film this. So, my name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. In the Image Clothing Company. Okay, this is a video on In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, one of our fourths, where we let dogs stay natural. We specialize in purebred standard poodles. Dante here is a standard poodle. But we give information on letting dogs stay natural, the way that we approach that applies to all dogs across the earth and really a lot of animals across the earth as well. Because we live in this modern man-made world placed onto God's natural earth, and there's a lot of things that are altering us as human beings and altering our dogs as well, okay? We're a clothing company for anything that clothes our bodies, the body of the human being that only has one way it could ever work, with bones shaped the way that they are and only the length that they are, and the body just having muscles only pulling and directly in line and bones only tracking directly in line. The dogs are the same way. There's only one way the body of the dogs work, and any animals designed in the image of God. We're a clothing company for anything that clothes the human being. Same with the dogs. So, with dogs, clothing is collars, leashes, harnesses, slip leads, bandanas, anything like this placed onto a dog. And clothing just has to, in all the ways we can have it, do this. Okay, stay centered, fit correct, where we discuss under In the Image Clothing Company, because it's about the bones of the body and where they work. You know, joints of material and joints of body parts meshing, or seams of material and seams of body parts meshing. Otherwise, the body gets damaged, okay? But then also, in all the ways we can, have clothing be made from 100% natural materials, because that's all that really exists. The only way we can have unnatural, synthetic, artificial materials is if we take them from natural things and make them unnatural. And then everything always decomposes back to natural anyway. Okay? A lot of things have changed in the past just tens of years before today's date. And so we deal with a lot of things as human beings, and our dogs deal with a lot of things that was literally never possible in the past, even just tens of years ago, because of inventions of human beings. So the thing with dogs, first off, meaning before I get any farther into this video's title. I'll tell you what the title is. If you saw it somewhere, then you saw the title, but let me say it here. Collars and the base of the dog's skull. Okay, collars and the base of the dog's skull. I'll get into it because, yeah, a lot of what we do under In the Image Clothing Company and always will do is video. I call it the gift of video. As I say sometimes, it's just another date-marked documentation. We date-mark things to show congruency, to show, what we're really doing here. We're a clothing company, but what does that mean? And why do you have dogs and music and a podcast? And, we do a lot of things that are not really even understood by the titling of a clothing company. You need some context to know why we're even here, as In the Image Clothing Company. So, yeah, I'll give a lot of information in this video about the base of the skull of the dog and what collars are doing to that. Because dogs, this is one of the biggest reasons why we have In the Image Clothing Company poodles, our dog fourth, if you will, as 1/4 of In the Image Clothing Company. The reason it's even here, well, there's a lot of reasons. But one of the biggest ones, certainly, yeah, there's a lot of reasons, just to be clear. Okay. Yeah, this is going to be a great video because this is huge. This is huge. I've discussed this quite a bit before today's date, but this will be a lot of good information here. Collars are placed onto dogs. Oh, this is going to be a big video. I can feel it already. Collars are placed onto dogs. Okay, clothing is placed onto human beings. We give a lot of free modifications in clothing for human beings to allow our clothing to stay centered when there's a lot of just imbalances in clothing design in modern day. But the dogs and their clothing, if you will, okay, collars, it's clothing the dog. Anything that is placed onto something else is clothing something else. So for us as human beings, it's even jewelry, glasses, hats, shoes, socks, pants, tops, undergarments, whatever it could be, that's placed onto the body is clothing the body with something. Like in the Holy Bible, when it says God clothes the fields with grass. Grass is placed onto the fields. Okay. Anything placed onto something else is clothing something else with something. So, collars and the base of the dog's skull, these are things I've discussed before today's date to a degree. But I want to give a lot of information here, deeper than I have before, date marked and documented from the founder of In the Image Clothing Company to show what we're really doing. And going forth, this will make a lot more sense when there's even more context behind what's really happening in the cases of chronic patterning, okay? In the human being, we have chronic patterning that gets built up. Scar tissue, bone spurs, and problems in the body trying to work around things like oversized clothing, imbalances of any kind in clothing, seams and collars of our tops as human beings, rotated seams, a lot of things like this, or ropes, drawstrings, and shoelaces, just twisting the body with one side tied over the other. The same thing is with dogs. We get into patterning as these bodies of flesh and bone and blood, to where our bodies are just trying to do all they can to continue to operate when there's something placed on them that doesn't allow them to really work properly. A collar on a dog's neck. A lot of dog collars are very heavy, first off, just pulling down on the rear of the dog's neck. A lot of collars are imbalanced weight-wise, where something that's evenly around your neck, when there's musculature opposing the center line of the neck, needs to be centered. It needs to be a circle, right? Circumference is like all the way around a circle. It needs to be evenly around the body of the dog, just like our collars as human beings. Keeping collars centered, the importance of snug collars for human being clothing in the Image Clothing Company's dreaded collar seam modification. For dogs, oh shoot, watch this. Shut down the power of the refrigerator for the video. I'll plug it back in after, but there you go. Dog collars, a lot of times they have buckles. We need our dog collars to be even weight all the way around, because if you've got a collar on a dog that's not sitting evenly and always just pulling down in one location, it's just like something hanging from their neck, because that's what it is, and it's just pulling on their whole neck. The thing is, the dog's neck is also the dog's tail tip. The dog's neck is also the dog's nose tip, okay, from the tip of the nose to the tip of the tail, with dog spines being horizontal on Earth's surface, okay. Human beings' spines are vertical with Earth's vertical gravity pull. Dog spines are horizontal with the horizontal surface of the Earth, okay? There's a perpendicular angle there. We talk about gravity a lot under In the Image Clothing Company, okay? There's a center line of the body, though, and the spine of the dog is in the center line of the body. There's a lot of little vertebrae in the spine of the dog, just like in the spine of a human being. And if we've got something placed onto this dog's neck, meaning this dog here, Dante, my standard poodle, or any of my standard poodles going forth, or any dogs across the earth, if any owner out there puts a collar on a dog around their neck, it's pulling down their spine. The spine's one whole thing, okay, from the base of the skull, which is in this video's title, right? Collars and the base of the dog's skull, all the way out to the tip of their tail. The whole thing is just one spine, okay, meaning a lot of little bones called vertebrae connecting together to make this chain of bones, right? The bodies are just a kinetic chain. As I say, the human being is just a mechanical machine placed onto the rock in space that is our Earth. The dogs are the same thing. They're just a mechanical machine, meaning a machine of motion, something that's just connected with hinges and levers and rotations and functionality. There's only one way it happens, because bones are just bone. They're like sticks, immovable by themselves, but they can move where they connect to other bones, at the joints between the bones, where they connect through ligaments, okay? So, the dogs place collars, not on themselves, but the owners of dogs place collars onto dogs. But the base of the skull is the focus for this video. I mean, there's so much we can talk about within the anatomy of the dog, and we will, and we do, and I have to the degree that I have before today's date, the 20th of February, 2026, under In The Image Clothing Company. And, you know, any of the 4 sides of In The Image Clothing Company that I've discussed it under, because I have on In The Image Clothing Company podcast quite a bit, where we really actually have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's the point of it, but there's specific episodes just about dogs of In The Image Clothing Company podcast before today's date. Certainly, okay? The 20th of February, 2026. But I am in this for life, okay? There is an episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast titled I'm in this for life, spoken by me, Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. So we're going to get into all this stuff even deeper than I could even understand as of now, how deep we'll get into it, because it's, you know, there's a lot to all of this. Anytime you place a body onto an earth, it just works how it works. Okay, this is God's design of the dog. God designed the human being in his image. The only end is to allow God's design of the human being to work, or let God's design of the dog stay natural. The same thing, just phrased different. 2 different sides of In The Image Clothing Company's 4 sides. So, there's a lot to talk about with collars, keeping them centered, okay? But the base of the dog's skull, this is it's a big point. A lot of what I'm going to discuss in this video is just, when is this happening? When is there pressure being put against the base of the dog's skull? Because once we can understand that just placing a collar around the dog's neck, the collar has the same effect from gravity that the dog does, just like our clothing as human beings has the same effect on it being placed by Earth's gravity as our bodies do. And so our clothing just has to not be altering our bodies. That's the only reason we talk about clothing, is to allow the body to work. The only reason we talk about dog products is to let the dog stay natural. If we never placed anything onto our dogs, we'd never need to talk about dog collars. Okay? But we do it, and there's a lot of good reasons as to why you restrain your dog. Okay? You can put labeling on your dog. That's about it, really. Those are the reasons for collars. Okay? Labeling, like your information as the owner or the dog's name. Okay? But if we have these things on our dogs in ways that are going to just alter their physical anatomy, the dog's actual body, and the way that it functions, then the body of the dog is damaged. So, the thing with the base of the dog's skull is dog spines, like I said, are horizontal on the earth. Rather than us standing up vertically, when Dante stands, Dante up. Hey. Dante. Up. Dante. Dante up. Hey. Up. Get up. Dante up. There you go. You silly. I just wanted to be persistent with it because he is really obedient. So, here's Dante. Horizontal spine. Here's Dante, and I'll show what this quote collar unquote actually is that he's wearing. But Dante here, he has his spine in a way where gravity is just pulling down perpendicular with his spine, right? His spine is like the Earth's surface, just horizontal. Gravity is vertical, perpendicular. And so if Dante is sniffing something down here on the ground like that, the collar is going to pull down, but it's actually going up, if you will, his spine, right to the base of his skull. So Dante, let's say he's just walking across the ground, sniffing something out with his nose pointed down at the ground. His collar will just slide right to the base of his skull, to the very top of his spine, okay? The spine of the dog starts at the tip of their tail, clear back here. It comes all the way up their body and connects right into the base of their skull. Okay, the skull is the head of the dog. So, Dante, sniffing something on the ground, looking down to get his nose to the ground, has not only the collar just placed on his neck, on his spine, just pulling on his spine, but it is going to slide all the way up there and just rest against the base of his skull. So, dogs will sniff things. Okay, there's some dogs that are just bred to sniff. There's hunting dogs, hound dogs, retriever dogs, which Dante, being a standard poodle, that's a lot of the reasons they bred standard poodles in the beginning of the breed, is to be water retriever dogs, like a Labrador retriever. They were bred for similar reasons, okay, to retrieve waterfowl, okay, like hunting dogs. That's really why they were bred to begin with, one of the reasons for the standard poodle. And dogs just use their nose very commonly, okay? It's their sense of, I don't know how to really relate it to a human being right now, but it's their way of navigating the earth. Because the thing is, dogs don't have hands with opposable thumbs, and they're not grabbing things and touching things in life. Dogs use their mouth or their nose the way that we would use our hands, really, just to navigate life. And so dogs are sniffing the ground. And they've got this collar now that is not only on their spine, just anytime it's placed on them, but when their head's down, it slides and just rests against the base of their skull. Okay. So, we talk about feeding dogs naturally. We filmed a video yesterday, Dante and I here, and placed it under In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, titled Feeding Dogs Naturally. We gave an introduction, okay? It was the 19th of February, 2026. Our introduction was on a lot of things that it means to feed dogs naturally, and there's a lot more to say. There's a lot more we could have said in that video, but it was a good, solid introduction on feeding. How it's so different to feed a dog out of a bowl than a wild dog just eating wild animals that it kills, okay? Before we domesticated dogs and basically changed their entire lives by doing that, okay? So, the base of the dog's skull, if we've got a collar around their neck, gets that collar sitting right against it, okay? The base of the skull, when the dog's sniffing the ground, if you feed your dogs from the ground out of a bowl, rather than feeding them at a proper head height, then as they're just putting their head all the way down to the food bowl on the ground, they've got that collar resting against the base of their skull as they're trying to eat. We talk about the jaw a lot under In the Image Clothing Company. For the human beings, but also for dogs, it's the same thing. The approach of the jaw. Okay, for us human beings, we've got a sternum, a spine, a trachea, a nose, and our jaw, all in the center line of the body, things we discuss and mention as being the center line of the universal human design under In the Image Clothing Company. But dogs are the same way. The spine, the sternum, okay, just the center of their chest, a trachea, a nose, and then their jaw, all in the center line of their body as well, on Earth's center of gravity. But the dogs are really not much different than us human beings. And why we put so much focus on the jaw is because the jaw stabilizes the entire body. Okay, so there's jaw musculature in the body of the human being that goes up to the crown of the head, on the sides of the head, that comes up into the cheekbones from the jaw. It goes from the jaw and connects all the way down to the shoulders, and all underneath the lower jawbone, called the mandible. There's a lot of muscles in the jaw and around the jaw. Muscles from the jaw to the head, muscles from the jaw to the shoulder. The dogs have a lot of muscles in their jaw. Okay. Stabilizing their head. And then we've got a collar resting against the base of the dog's skull. Okay. So as I said, I'll show this quote collar, unquote, that I have on Dante. I'll explain right now what it is. It's a shirt tail, just a t-shirt tail, okay, the bottom end of a t-shirt. We're in the Image Clothing Company, okay. Under In the Image Clothing Company, we give a lot of free modifications in clothing to not alter your body because there's a lot of imbalances and improper things in modern clothing design, and there's only one way the human body could ever work. There's no opinion to that. Okay, we've got the context to prove, if you will. Okay, don't believe us. Truth is truth. We don't get to decide, but we do. We've got the context. Hundreds and hundreds of hours of video as of today's date explaining how the body works, the anatomy of the human body, the anatomy of the body of the dogs. These are the things we discuss under In the Image Clothing Company. So, yeah, I cut the shirt tail off a shirt and I put it on Dante as a collar. The thing is, we just have to have very light, minimal, simplistic dog collars and all the things we place onto dogs and human being clothing, okay? Harnesses for dogs is the same as a collar, just something placed onto them. And then a leash connects to a harness or a collar. And we've got slip leads that are just kind of a whole unit by themselves, if you will. But anything at all you place onto a dog, it can't alter the dog's body, or it alters the dog's body. Okay. But the base of the skull is a huge thing. It's the back of the dog's ears. And the dogs move their ears a lot. I don't know if you'll be able to see this for sure, but see my ears moving? If you do, I can wiggle my ears, and this is actually very natural and healthy. Something that everybody should be able to do. As we say, everybody who has one, or everyone who has a body. There's a universal human design. Clothing has to sit on you the exact same as everyone else. It's about the skeletal system's positioning on Earth's gravity. Okay, just the frame of our bodies that supports us. There's only one way this happens. Same with the dogs. This is the reason for In the Image Clothing Company. When it comes to clothing something, the human beings or the dogs, you place collars on dogs, in the back of their ears is the base of their skull. Okay, so the dogs are looking down. The dogs are sniffing the ground. The dogs are ideally not eating out of a bowl on the ground. But in the cases of dogs that have been doing that, now you know that dogs should be eating at a proper height. Okay, because of a lot of these reasons, regardless of collars, but just the positioning of the jaw and a lot of what we discuss in other videos under In the Image Clothing Company. You can look it up, videos we have made already as of today's date, the 20th of February 2026. But I want to keep this right around the base of the skull of the dog with the information for this video specifically, because anything the dog is ever doing where their head is any lower than their shoulders, okay, it's called the withers, the top of the dog's shoulder blades. That's how you measure the height of a dog. Just for some context, because he's in so many videos and I'll have him for probably about 12 years, okay, give or take, however long he lives is the point. Dante here is about 21 inches tall at the withers, okay? The top of his shoulder blades, anytime a dog's head drops lower than the top of their shoulder blades, which is, you know, just the other end of their neck from the base of the skull, okay? At the neck, you come forward and you get to the base of the skull, you come backward and you get to the shoulder blades on the top of the back of the dog. Yeah, there's a lot to this. What I'm saying is, there's a lot to this. That's why I make it such a point that I'm in this for life, because this is huge. Yeah, all the things we do under In the Image Clothing Company. Anytime the dog's head drops lower than their shoulder blades, okay, and that's going to be anytime the dog is sniffing the ground, that collar will slide to the base of their skull. So you've got musculature connecting the skull to the spine. Okay. There is a ligament right across the top of the back of the dog's neck, just like us as human beings, from the base of the skull down the neck, or the cervical spine is what it's called. Okay, the spine of the neck, and then to the bottom end of the neck, there's a ligament there connecting the very rear of the base of the skull where that bone is, the occiput. Okay, there's a bone there, a little pokey bone right in the back of our head as human beings, and the same thing in the back of the head of the dogs. That is the insertion, or the starting point, at the top end of the neck for that ligament, and then it goes down to the bottom end of the neck. Okay. So this is always just having a collar placed on it, if there's a collar placed on the dog, regardless. I was going to say ridiculous. Meaning it's just the word that almost came out, because this is ridiculous. How real this is, how impactful this is, how universal this is. Okay. As I say, a lot of our information under In the Image Clothing Company Poodles applies to a lot of animals across the earth, like I said earlier, but things like pack mules or horses, when you put halters onto these animals, any animal that you place something onto like this to restrain in any kind of way, or anything at all you could say is clothing an animal with something, we just have to be intentional. We have to know the anatomy of our bodies well enough to not alter them. Every body has one. I mean, it's in the literal wording of how we just explain human beings. You know, it's a body. Same with the dogs. If we've got a collar sitting right against the base of the skull of the dog, okay, that's the back of the ears. And the dog's ears need to be moving. The dog's skull needs to be able to have all of its motion, because there's all the musculature of the neck that goes up into the skull. But then there's just that ligament straight across the back of the neck on the very highest point of the dog, coming right to that little pokey bone, okay, on the very rear of the dog's skull. We're going to really alter all these things that are going on if a dog has a collar sitting right against the base of its skull. Okay. Because dogs move their ears to hear things. You know, you'll see this. If you make a noise, your dog's ears will move independently. One ear will move and try to kind of like face the direction the sound was coming from so they can hear it better. And their ears are moving. Poodles, okay, they have ears that fall down, if you will, flop down, okay? A lot of dogs have ears that just stick up, and then there's other dogs that have ears that just hang down. Like hound dogs, you know, beagles, for example. Spaniels, okay, like a King Charles Cavalier Spaniel, or yeah, whatever dog it could be that you could say that's like a poodle, has their ears just hanging down. And a big focus is keeping the dog's ear hair cut short enough that it's not going to be touching the ground. If they're sniffing the ground, like if their nose is actually touching the ground, they don't want to have their ears dragging on the ground, because the hair that grows on dogs that have hair rather than fur that you need to cut, it needs to be cut short enough that it's not longer than the end of their nose, or else that's already going to cause them to try to hold their head higher off the ground than they just naturally be able to put their nose to the ground and sniff. And that's just changing the musculature's activation of their body, the position of the skeletal system of their body, of the head, you know, and the neck. But then you add a collar that's just sitting right on the base of the dog's skull to that, and it's sitting behind the ears, and the dog's trying to already lift their ears up off the ground, really, using the musculature all around their ears that moves their ears. if their ear hair is cut too long, okay, meaning not cut short enough to where their ear hair is dragging on the ground when they're trying to sniff the ground. But then the dogs can't use the musculature of their ears to pull their ears up and back when their head's pointing down at the ground, sniffing the ground. If there's a collar sitting at the base of their skull because it has slid up the neck against the base of the dog's skull, because that's the same as just being right against the back of the dog's ears, and the musculature of the dog that can move their ears needs to be able to pull their ears back just so they can have the natural motion in their ears. And if there's just a collar in the way, they can't do that. And the thing is, our bodies can't compensate, as we say. There's a difference between healthy accommodation and unhealthy compensation. Accommodation is things like, I've shown it like this before on In the Image Clothing Company's main site for the human being's body. Okay. The collarbone or clavicle here from the top of the center of the body in the front, the sternum bone, the collarbone or clavicle comes up and out to the edge of the shoulder, and then it becomes the shoulder. It's one of the 3 bones of the shoulder. Okay. So this clavicle or collarbone has to come up and in to accommodate for full internal rotation of the shoulder capsule. Okay. Rotating the arm in. Like if we lock the hand out from the shoulder at the elbow between the two, then we can rotate inward all the way. If the collarbone or clavicle can pivot up and in to just open up the joint capsule of the shoulder. That's healthy accommodation. That's a built-in function of the body that's natural for the body to have all its mobility and motion and its full range of motion. Okay, there's a full range to all the motion in the body. There's a video on In the Image Clothing Company's main site titled Full Range of Motion. Okay, I discussed it fairly deeply in that video. So the dogs are no different. They've just got a full range to all the motion in their body, and then it stops. It goes fully one direction, stops, fully the other direction, stops. There's just a full range to all the motion in the bodies. Okay. The ears need to be able to move in all the directions. They will just naturally move. And if you've got a collar placed against the rear of the dog's skull, okay, the base of the dog's skull, it's resting against the ears, and the ears can't naturally move, and that's damaging, okay? Well, it's also just resting against the skull, and the dog can't have all of the range of motion in its skull, in its neck. Okay. Keeping collars centered, the importance of snug collars. Those are 2 of the biggest phrases we could discuss for both human beings and dogs. Just in general. Okay. And we do, often, under In the Image Clothing Company. This is the point. Accommodation is healthy. Compensation is when there is something not working properly, like a collar placed against the base of the dog's skull and against the rear of their ears. And the natural motion that would be there can't be because there's just something physically in the way. Then the dog will use other parts of its body to try to get that range of motion. Same thing in the human being, but if we can't lift our head up like this, then our lower back will bend because the whole spine is all one thing. So the dogs, if they can't lift their head or move their head naturally, then maybe somewhere down their spine, down in like a part of their back might bend or compensate, meaning move when it wouldn't normally need to, but just to get the motion from somewhere. Because the body is just a mechanical machine. It's just a machine of motion. It either moves or it doesn't. We either walk or we don't. We either, have the ranges of motion in our bodies or we don't. It's just how it works. The body either works or it doesn't. Okay? Truly. Like, that's it. Really. Actually. Yeah. Seriously. Because this is what I'm saying. Yeah. Oh, shoot. That's it. As I say, under In the Image Clothing Company's main side, me, Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, just want to deliver information on how the body works. The human body can only ever work activated as a whole. Everything's all there with a role to play. Everything's got its own individual role, though. Everything has its own function, so something else can't make up for or compensate for something not doing its function. We can't have the spine of the dog's lower back try to bend in ways that they can get their nose somewhere because they can't naturally bend their neck from a collar, altering the neck's mobility. Okay, there's only one way these things happen. The point is, if we never placed anything onto our bodies, they would just work. If we never placed anything onto the dog's bodies, they would just work. Okay, they're designed to work by God. And so dogs' collars. Dante's just so comfortably on his side, oh, yeah, curled up on this towel that I'm sitting on with him. Okay. The dog's skull has all the jaw musculature in it. It's got all the eyebrow musculature in it. The dogs can move their eyes around and their eyebrows move just like us as human beings. The dog's nose is moving all over the place when they're sniffing. There's musculature all across the dog's face that's moving its nose. And you can watch this closely if you look at a dog when they're sniffing something. The nose will move, well, just like ours can. Back and forth. And, we can scrunch our noses as human beings. Dogs can do the same thing. But if the collar is right against the rear of the dog's skull, okay, right against the base of the dog's skull, then all of these other things won't be able to work very naturally at all. The dog will be trying to use musculature in its face to, hold the collar up and off of the back of their skull. The base of their skull. They really will. That's what happens. And so you get scar tissue built up along the dog's nose, their whole snout, between their eyes and the tip of their nose, that whole part there, on the top of the nose, where that bone just comes down the snout of the dog. And the eyebrow musculature and the jaw musculature. Dogs have jaw muscles that are up all the way onto the top of their head, and then on the sides of their, cheekbones, if you will, as well. And all of this stuff will get bound up. Scar tissue will form. And problems will happen if the dog just doesn't have its natural range of motion right at the base of its skull, where the spine of the neck meets the actual base of the skull of the dog. And so there's a lot to this, because we can't alter our dog's ears. We talk a lot about ears under In the Image Clothing Company. The ears of the human being we talk about not altering. So there's, many videos under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company as of today's date, the 20th of February, 2026, about the ears. There's just a lot of ways that our ears can and are, in the cases that they are, getting altered. They can get very altered, okay, by what we do in modern day. The ears are just cartilage, like what's in our nose and like what's between our bones to cushion them. There's that thin little layer of cartilage between the bones that's just cushioning for the bones so they don't wear out, okay? Otherwise, we just have bone connecting directly to bone. There's a thin layer of cushioning between the bones called cartilage. That's what the ears are made out of. And so the ear cartilage gets misshapen if we place something into the ear canal, or if we place something on or against the ears, like glasses for human beings, placed onto the top of the ears, anything we place inside of our actual ear canal as human beings, or like a collar against the base of the dog's skull. which is just the back of their ears. And so the dog's ear cartilage actually gets misshapen. Often, it does. A really big focus, I said it, right? The two things that I said are huge. The importance of snug collars and keeping collars centered. Yeah, snug collars is a big thing. We don't want our dog's collars slipping around on their spine. Okay? Because let's say your dog's collar is loose. It's not nice and snug, so it doesn't really move much at all. Ideally, not at all. You know, we want our dog's collars as tight as they can be. Let's not use the word tight there, but as snug as they can be without being too tight. There you go. To where they could be choking the dog. Because a snug collar is going to alter the dog's body much, much, much less than a loose collar. You place anything onto the dog, it's just something that isn't there, unless it is. The dog's just natural until we put something onto it. Then we've altered the dog by putting something onto it that's man-made. A collar of any kind. Even in the Image Clothing Company's collars, when we have them for you to potentially purchase if you'd like to, we can make the absolute lightest, most centered, minimal, simplistic collars possible. It's still something placed onto the dog. Okay. And we need them to be as snug as we can have them be, because if a collar's loose, then maybe while the dog's standing at a fairly neutral height, head position, the collar's not against the base of their skull, well, it will probably slide down and be sitting against their shoulder blades instead. And that's a problem for the dog's body, okay? But then if the dog puts its head down, if the collar's loose, it'll just slide and then hit the base of the dog's skull, okay? So snug collars, we can have them sit somewhere right in the middle of the neck if we could, and so they're altering the least amount of things we could have them be, still having something placed onto the dog. It just never would be unless we did it as human beings, right? Letting dogs stay natural is our slogan here on In the Image Clothing Company Poodles. It's unnatural to put something around the neck of anything, even us as human beings. So we have to be as intentional as we possibly can when we do that. But we don't know what we don't know. We can't be held accountable for what we don't know. You probably never have thought about this stuff, maybe. I can't speak for you without knowing you and knowing your situation. Well, I can't speak for you regardless, but that's what I mean, is I don't know you. Whoever you are, if I don't know even who you are, if you're watching this. But I can say I didn't know just about anything that I know with clothing. Meaning anything that clothes my own body, Evan Strong, before I founded In the Image Clothing Company. And so a lot of dog owners, maybe you've had dogs for, 40 years, 80 years, seriously, maybe. And maybe you've never really thought about having a light collar or a snug collar or a centered collar on your dog. Well, imbalanced collars or heavy collars or loose collars and these type of things literally take years off the lifespan of dogs. It's just the truth. That's just a lot to do. Hold something on your neck all day if it's not the way your neck works, okay? And just a lot of patterning gets built up in the body of the dog because of that. So, collars on the base of the dog's skull are causing a lot of problems, okay? Because anytime the dog's using their jaw, that's musculature moving. The jaw is just a hinge. Like us as human beings, our jaw hinges right in front of our ears here. Okay, as we open the jaw, it just hinges down and back. As we close the jaw, it just hinges back up closed. Okay, where our teeth could mesh together. So dogs is the same thing. If your dog's smiling, which dogs do smile, okay, but if your dog's panting, and that's the case as well, dogs pant when they get physically fatigued, their mouth is open. And then when your dog is chewing food or drinking water, their mouth is open. And this is the jaw musculature moving that allows the lower jawbone, the mandible, to open. And this muscle of the jaw, all of the muscle of the jaw is what I mean, on both sides of the lower jawbone and then up onto the skull of the dog, clear to the top of the head of the dog. Yeah. This muscle, all of these muscles that go into the jaw's motion is what I'm saying, are going to be altered if the dog's skull has a collar resting against the base of it. It's just going to change the way the whole dog's head works. You know, we've got to realize the size difference. You putting your dog's collar on you is probably going to be uncomfortable anyway. But then we've got to realize that the relative size of a dog versus a human being, if we had a collar on us that was as big to us as our dog's collars are to them, it would have to be bigger, just because we're bigger as human beings in almost every case than dogs. And there's some really big dogs out there for sure, you know. But most of your average, you know, dogs are much smaller than human beings. And so the collar is sitting against the dog's skull. And it's a lot. I mean, imagine wearing your dog's collar all day. That'd be probably pretty uncomfortable. How is it any different for your dog to do that than you to do that? And then, like I'm saying, really to make it be equivalent, the collar would have to be bigger. To be on you, to be like the same size as it is on the dog, relative size-wise, because the dog's smaller, okay? I mean, it's a big deal. What the collar is doing to the dog their whole life, there's no kind of like sales pitch we have in any way under In The Image Clothing Company, any products we'd ever put out. Nope. It's just what it is. These bodies would never have anything placed onto them until we place something onto them. So, yeah, I will show what I have on Dante here because this is ideal. Meaning the minimalism of it, okay? That doesn't have to be some kind of term, you know, minimalism. But it's minimalistic, it's simplistic, it's light, it's basic, it's bare bones, if you will. That's what I'm saying, is just as simple as we can get it so that it can alter the dog as little as we could possibly have it while still having a collar on our dogs. Because it's just going to sit against the base of their skull. If there's weight on the collar, because especially if you have something underneath the collar of a dog, like a clip or labeling, like what they call like a dog tag, yikes, yeah, right, these things will just be imbalanced weight around the collar, so they'll always fall down to the very bottom of the dog's neck. And so instead of the dog having all its natural mobility in its head and its neck, it's got this like pendulum of weight just hanging straight down. It's like us wearing a necklace with a relatively heavy pendant. Always, you know, and some people do, but we've got to realize the dog's spine is horizontal. We're vertical, so our pendants sit against our chest if we have a necklace on. But a dog's collar, being essentially a necklace, if it's got some kind of thing hanging from it, the way we'd have a pendant hanging from a necklace, it hangs different on a dog because a dog's spine is horizontal, like I'm saying. So it just hangs and just moves with gravity and the motion of the dog. It doesn't rest against their chest quite the same as it would as a human being wearing something like that around our neck. We just stand on 2 legs and dogs stand on 4. That's the way you can see that. Our spines go straight up. Well, there's the natural curve in the spine. A video under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company, by the way. The natural curve in the spine. But, yes. Okay, and then the dog's spine is like we're laying down, essentially. Okay, horizontal. There's just differences, okay, between dogs and human beings. I mean, that's relatively obvious to you if it is, to most people it would be, is the point. But there's a lot to it, anatomy-wise. There's a lot to it navigating this modern man-made world. There's a lot to it when it comes to placing something onto the dog that never otherwise possibly could even happen until human beings step in and altered God's natural order of things. There's no opinion to this stuff. That's what I'm saying by that. There's no opinion to this. To In the Image Clothing Company, what we're really doing, our actual reason for being here. Yeah. It's the fix. Clothing. Well, the fix is never wearing any clothing. Okay, is the point. That's what I mean. Okay. Any problems we have physically? What's physically placed onto us? Anything clothing us. And for the dogs, it's collars, most commonly. Okay? Anything placed onto them, though. Harnesses, leashes, slip leads, like I'm saying, bandanas, whatever it could be. Placed onto the dog. But in this case, you've got something just directly on their neck. Just hanging on their neck. And then resting against the base of their skull where it does. Okay? If it does. So I'll get Dante up again and I'll take his little, what I call the collar, off. It's, partially just experimental, what I've used here to put on Dante's neck. And I'll explain more thoroughly what it really is. I mentioned what it was, but I'll explain it so you can just see what I'm showing here with those two phrases, really. The importance of snug collars and keeping collars centered. And how this does that, just mostly for the visual is why this is on there, mostly. Yeah. I'll show you. Dante up. This is just a different situation for him. We moved some things here that weren't quite like this, and so he's also just so comfortable. Dante, can you get up? You up? Yay. Good. Good boy. Okay, let's take this off of you. He's kind of stretching his, back out a little bit there, but let's take this off of you, buddy. This thing's snug, but it's not too tight. It's, I'll show you. It's very thin, very pliable, and 100% cotton. Okay, it's 100% cotton material. Let's slip this over your head, buddy. You silly dog. But also, Dante has hair. And, yeah, I know, Dante's hair is pretty matted up. It's pretty matted up right now. Not, like, unhealthily matted up for his sake, but meaning it's not combed through well at all right now, by any means. I'm aware. Good boy. But what I'm saying is, with the thickness of his hair, collars sit more snug on dogs with hair than dogs with fur. Or dogs with really thick fur, more so than dogs with, like, thin fur coats. Dante's got some thickness to his hair, though, so the collar can stay in place better. That is a beneficial thing when it comes to placing collars onto a dog, is if the dog's hair coat or fur coat is pretty thick, the collar will stay in place better. It just will. Okay. But this is what I've had here around his neck, is a shirt tail. Okay. Just the bottom of a t-shirt, like the t-shirt I'm wearing, same type of thing. I just cut the very bottom part off where the stitching is. And then I took it and I folded it one time this way, like coming inward. And then another time the opposite way, like going outward. Okay. We just have to keep things even. Under In the Image Clothing Company's main side, there's a video. Dante was in it, okay? Titled, Right-Handed Knots versus Left-Handed Knots. And really, we need right-handed knots on our left side and left-handed knots on our right side because there's a center line to the body, like tying shoes, within the Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique, which is just the only way the top of the feet are shaped, okay? Half of their function, okay, lifting the feet up, dorsiflexion versus pointing the feet down, plantar flexion. Yeah, anyway, there's some context on that. But the point is, the first time you twist something, if you're going to twist something twice, you go one direction, and then the second time you go the opposite direction, and then it's even. Now, even though we have two different, twists, if you will, of this shirt tail, which is kind of essentially just a rope at this point, right? It's going to be even because we do it opposite each time, okay? And so I have this placed onto Dante as a collar, if you will, right now, okay? Just kind of, almost experimental, really. But what I'm saying is this doesn't sit against the base of his skull, okay? It's nice and snug, nice and light, very minimal. And so there's no even possible option for something that will stay in place well to slide against the base of the dog's skull. But then also, we need to do what we can to feed dogs at a good height, a proper height, a head height, if you will, like the top of their sternum or breastbone or chest bone, right below their throat. Somewhere around there is a pretty proper height for the dogs to eat so they can stay neutral, just like they were standing, basically. And there's a lot of context with that I've given already before today's date, by the way. There's just a lot to all of this, okay? There's a lot to all of this. A lot. Okay. But, yeah. The thing is, people don't know that their dog's ear cartilage has been altered from, weeks, even, well, let's start with days, hours, okay, whatever it is, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, however long it has been, of a collar just sitting against the base of the dog's skull. It's sitting against the back of their ears, and so the ear cartilage gets altered, and now the position of the dog's ears changes their whole body. As dogs yawn, well, here you go. I mean, there's a video under the main site of In the Image Clothing Company titled What Yawning Really Is, because it only is what it is. We yawn for the reasons we do. A lot of it's the ear cartilage. When dogs yawn, a lot of what they're trying to do is get the collar away from their neck. A lot of what they're trying to do is push the collar down and back off of their ears and the base of their skull. So anyway, there's a lot to this, and the focus for this video specifically is the base of the skull, because we could, like I was starting to say a little bit earlier, talk about the other end and the collar slipping down and sitting on the shoulder blades of the dog. Yeah, and there's just a lot in general we can discuss with collars, but the base of the dog's skull there, it's where the neck musculature inserts to the skull. It's where, like I said, at that little peak bone on the rear of the skull, the occiput, okay? As I touched that on him, he just, sighed and, relaxed. Yeah, there's that ligament that comes, from right around the shoulder blade area of the dog up to the base of the skull right there. And that's really supporting the head. It's connecting to all the vertebrae that it connects to on the neck of the dog, right, on the spine. And I don't want to get too technical with the explanation of all that right now, but just for some context, for some, in ways it's our insurance policy, just showing if you want to see what we're really doing here, we've been saying these things since this date. We've had this intent since the very founding, meaning our intent of what we're really doing here under In the Image Clothing Company. We just document things to show what we're doing. And also, this is just so much free information that applies to you if you're a dog owner. And there you go. Okay. It applies to you, all the free information we give on In the Image Clothing Company's main site, because there's a universal human design. It just is what it is. It's only what it is. It'll never be anything else. The body of the dogs or the human beings. So, yeah. When your dog's yawning, though, I mean, let me give just a little bit more context on that in this video, just while I'm speaking on it right now. We'll discuss it more where we do. We will, certainly. But when a dog's yawning, their lower jawbone, the mandible, is just opening down and back like ours as human beings. And if there was a collar sitting around our neck, like up to the top of our neck at the base of our skull, it's actually on our lower jawbone as well. So when we yawn, the lower jawbone, as it opens down and back, it would push that collar down and back and off of the base of our skull. Okay, it's just mechanics. The human body is just mechanics. Dante was also in that video, okay? A video on the main side of In the Image Clothing Company. So, yeah, it's just what it is. There's no possible opinion to this stuff at all, okay? No, I mean, you don't have to care to have a collar that looks a certain way for your dog. You don't have to care to, like, want to get a new collar even. But if you have a collar that's not sitting on your dog properly, it's literally going to take, I can't say exactly how long for every situation, but certainly it will take time off of your dog's life. You know, lessen the length of their lifespan because their bodies are just struggling to work because of something we do as their owners, placing something onto them that just alters their body. So I guess that's all I'm going to say in this video. We've got a lot to say on this. You know, I've got my entire lifetime, at least, of In the Image Clothing Company, and then if anyone takes over after I die, there you go. This information is eternal and always valid, which is what eternal means, is never changing. Truth, okay? Truth is unchanging. Truth is something we don't get to decide as human beings. Truth is the same, yesterday, today, and forever, just like God himself, Jesus the Christ, the same, always. The truth is, you place something onto a dog, it would never happen unless we did it as human beings. And so watch out for the base of the skull of the dog, because, you know, I don't want to try to give people, you know, any I mean, I can say whatever I want. What I mean is, though, just be careful with your dog. But, you know, there's certainly parts of the body of the dog, you know, around the base of the skull especially, where scar tissue will get built up that you can kind of massage out and help the dog with. Just be so gentle and careful, right? But you can notice right along the base of the skull of the dog, you know, if you follow that bone, yeah, if you follow that occiput, okay, the bone right at the base of the skull, in the center of the rear of the head of the dog, that pokey little bone, you follow that from the center of the base of the skull of the dog out to the outsides of the head or the skull of the dog, where you find the ears, you can notice if you've had a collar on a dog for quite some time, there was probably, I know this out of personal experience with Dante here, being the rescue that he is, right around 2 years old, give or take, maybe just coming up on 2 years old. Just don't know for sure because he is a rescue from the South Utah Valley Animal Shelter. I know he had a collar on him from where he came from before I adopted him because I can feel it. This, like, indentation, it's a line from that occiput at the base of the rear of the skull there, and then, you know, just directly out on either side to the rear of his ears, the musculature, like, off the top and back of his head there, there's just this line of this indentation in the musculature right at the base of his skull. Okay. So there you go, first-hand experience. I mean, this is truth. It's just what will happen if you place something onto something else. It's going to just be on it, and repercussions will come when it's a body, right? Like a dog, in this case. Or us as human beings, the same thing. You know, patterning created in our bodies, that's really the focus, is getting out of chronic patterning, scar tissue, bone spurs in the body. That's really what we do on In the Image Clothing Company's main side. And like I'm saying, in all truth, I mean, that's the point, is the ideal is just we never wore clothing at all. Our bodies couldn't be damaged from anything clothing them if we never clothed them with anything. Same with the dogs. The dogs couldn't be altered by a collar on them if we never placed a collar on them. Like any wild dog that exists in nature. No collars are on any wild dog ever. Until human beings do it, is the point. See what I mean? So anyway, okay. We just have to be extremely intentional with what we do, because it's unnatural to begin with, and it always will be, to place anything onto a dog, but it's not wrong. And it really can be to a point where it just about doesn't alter the dog's body at all. Just like human being clothing. Our clothing, if it's fitting us properly, and we just give so much free information under In the Image Clothing Company under the gift of video, you don't need to question how to do these things, you know, how to keep collars centered, or how to have collars be snug for the dogs, and how to have your clothing fit for the human being that you are, okay, as the owner of the dog in this case, right? If you're owning a dog, and that's why you're watching this, maybe, right? Probably for most people that'd be the reason, because you have your own dog, and or maybe you're going to get a dog and you're doing research, something like this, right? Whatever it is, it doesn't matter what the situation is. The point is, we can't have something just sitting right against the base of the skull of the dog, okay? So there you go. More information that I could give right now, but it's more of just an introduction. And then my understandings will deepen as time progresses, and our explanations will deepen as well, as in the Image Clothing Company, as time progresses. So there you go. Okay, we'll be down in St. George, Utah relatively soon. Okay. And there you go, right? A lot to come under In the Image Clothing Company and all four sides. This is just one focus. I just want to make that very clear about collars. Just one thing to realize that's happening is the base of the dog's skull. And all the things that I've discussed in here, and then more that is happening that we'll discuss. But collars will just alter the whole body of the dog all throughout it. Okay, so just being intentional is the focus. And Dante's a good dog. You're a good boy, Dante. I'm gonna pick him up. Come here, boy. I know you probably don't want to be woken up from sleeping, but... Oh, yikes. Oh, you baby. You're a baby. You are a baby now. Good one. How are you, dog? Okay. So, there you go. There's your introduction, because I can show now with my hand. Just imagine something right there, sitting against the base of this bone of the skull, but that's also just the very back of the ears. So you can see it now with Dante. Okay. The ear cartilage, it comes right to the back of the skull. Okay. So a collar sitting right there against the base of his skull. It's against his ears, against the skull, on tendons and ligaments and muscles, and really altering the entire body of the dog. Okay. So there you go. And yeah, Dante could use some some maintenance to his hair right now. Huh, buddy? That's on me, bro. I get it. But you're fine. It's not... It's not bad yet. Like, you know, damaging kind of bad. You're good. You are good, dog. You are good. You're funny, man. Anyway, we'll have many poodles going forth, you know, under In the Image Clothing Company poodles. Me personally, Evan Strong, the founder, I'll have my own personal poodles, but as we breed purebred standard poodles, to advocate for what it means to properly breed purebred dogs and why. Oh, if you got to see there a little bit, as he yawned, his ears moved back. That's a good visual, if you could see that. Well, here you go. See his ears move up and back? If you can. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could see it well enough to tell what I'm saying. There you go. That's good that we got to capture that in this video as well. That's what I'm discussing. As they yawn, the jaw bone moves down and back, which is just the same area as the base of the skull, like on the top rear of the base of the skull. Travel from there down around, passing just the back of the ears, come down, and it's the lower jaw bone. It's all basically the same area. like the same inline position where that collar would just be sitting against. Yikes. I mean, that's what I'm saying. But then you could also see, if you could, his ears come up and back as he yawned. All the face muscles, the whole skin of the face just stretches up and back. You know, we talk about, yeah, we just, so that's what I'm saying. There's so much I could say in this video as well. But we will say more as we do going forth. Just know that we really know what we're doing here, because all we have to know is to not alter things. And then we can learn how to not, you know, so it's just that simple. Yeah, anyway, in the Image Clothing Company, we, yeah, right, for the health, the importance of purebred dogs, and how to be good owners of dogs, what that means, keeping less dogs out of shelters and more dogs in homes. Okay, there's no need to adopt dogs from shelters. There'd be no dogs in a shelter. There'd be no shelters for dogs to go to. Animal shelters, right? If dogs just stayed at homes. And so we got to do all that we can from the very beginning to set dogs up for success with proper breeding. And these are the things we discuss under In the Image Clothing Company Poodles. Things like holding leashes naturally so we don't alter our bodies as the owner of the dogs. And yeah, the height of dogs versus the height of owners, you know, feeding and all the other things, because the same thing for human beings. It is eating, it's standing, sitting, walking, sleeping, breathing, hydration. We discuss everything. It's only about clothing, as I said earlier, but just to be very clear, because it's the only thing physically placed onto us. It's only about collars under In the Image Clothing Company for dogs, really under In the Image Clothing Company Poodles in this case, for any dogs, because they're placed onto the dog. It's about the dog's health. It's not about selling collars. We're not about products. We're about, well, if we're going to have products we place onto bodies of flesh and bone and blood and just these mechanical machines, we can't alter them. That's the focus. That's the reason. That's the point. That will always be the point. Because that's the point. I mean, that's it, you know? And so that's what I'm saying is, it's like what I say with the human being. We can address anything, you know, in our lives, ever. But everything we ever do, we're doing it through clothing. As long as we're wearing clothing, well, we do anything we do in our lives. Anything you ever want to address with your dog, you're addressing it essentially through their collar or harness or whatever it is placed onto them, if anything is. You know, slip leads are awesome. Microchipping dogs is huge. Okay, it's a technology we didn't have in the past. It's just great. You can't lose the information from your dog if it's placed inside their body, you know. And with us having the goal being natural on all four sides of In the Image Clothing Company, we certainly do advocate for microchipping dogs, even though you could say it's unnatural. It's technology placed into the dog, but it doesn't damage the dog. It doesn't. It's only beneficial. And it's hugely beneficial. Okay, Dante's microchipped, for some context. Which, if you don't know what that is, I guess I'll give some context on that, just while I'm saying it here. Again, a lot of it's just the date marks, okay? To show congruency. I mean, it just is what it is. The reason we're doing these things, yeah, okay, is just the reason we're doing them and nothing else. So don't get it twisted, okay? Just to be very clear. A lot of people are trying to make this out to be something it isn't. In the Image Clothing Company in general, on all four sides, around this time period. So, no, you'll see. Time will tell what we're really doing here. And you will see. Trust me. But don't trust me. I just mean, truth is what I mean. Just meaning, we got to hold out for good things to come, because this is huge. And, yeah, so microchipping dogs. It's just a little, very, 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 very small thing. Around this time period, at least. It's about the size of a grain of rice. Placed usually right between the shoulder blades of the dog, underneath the skin, just right underneath the skin there. You know, they inject it into the dog, and then you can have your information permanently there, you know, through technology. And they can scan it and pull up the information, you know, your address, your phone number, or any way to contact you, whatever it is that gets the dog back to you if it were to get lost, you know, separated from you in any way for any reason. Because that's what I'm saying is, a lot of the reason collars are so thick and heavy is all the labeling that gets put on their collars and the ways that it happens. I mean, we could put all the labeling we would possibly need on collars and, I mean, just write it onto the collars like I've done here with this shirt tail. You just write it in a, you know, with something, with a writing utensil. But we get these metal, you know, pretty weighty little jingly, noisy dog tags around the neck of the dog. There's a lot that comes with that. And one of the big things is just more weight that could make it so the collar could just slip what is kind of up, but down with gravity when the dog's head is down to the base of the rear of their skull. Okay, so that's just one of the things with collars, like I'm saying, is just that location on the dog where it's sitting. I didn't fully finish saying this. I was, you know, leading into this earlier, and then I started saying something else. When there's weight hanging down on the dog's neck, like when I was talking about necklaces and it being a pendulum, basically, having a dog tag, or just like a clip type thing to hook a leash to, hanging down in the center of the dog's neck with gravity, well, that's just pulling the dog's neck into one fixed position, which is unnatural, okay? The pull of gravity having the effect it does on the little thing placed onto the collar of the dog, there's just weight, you know, the clip or the dog tag or whatever it is like that. But then also, on the back of the dog's neck, this is what I'm saying, the base of the dog's skull, the weight of what's underneath the dog's neck, the dog tag or the clip like that, where you could hook a leash to, that pulling down underneath the dog's jaw or underneath the dog's trachea or underneath the dog's neck, right? The same location, but just so you can see what I'm saying, that pulling down there is actually pulling from the base of the dog's skull. Okay. So it's amplified weight on the back of the dog's neck when you place something down on what you could call, I guess, the front of the dog's neck. And just the angle that'll pull with gravity, just pulling on it, it'll just really change the curvature in the dog's cervical spine or the spine of their neck. Big time, okay? Much differently than just having a collar on there. Even if the collar itself is heavy, when you have something placed onto the collar like that, that's like hanging from it, it'll just really, yeah, damage the dog big time. So there's, like I'm saying, there's so much that we can, do to change the lives of dogs through In the Image Clothing Company poodles. That's the point. That's why we're here. That's what we already have done and will continue to do with our information and the reason we're doing what we're doing. Our team will always be awesome, you know, God-fearing people, dog lovers, nature lovers, as we are under In the Image Clothing Company. And we'll have some awesome dogs as well. Our dogs are just as much team members as our human being team members, okay, as our team builds under In the Image Clothing Company. So there you go. There's a lot of information, really, I mean, that's a lot, in this one video on collars and the base of the dog's skull. So, you know, we'll do things where we do events under In the Image Clothing Company, and we'll do what we call poodle parade events. You can bring your poodles, purebred of any size, or mixed poodles of any size, here to the state of Utah. We live up Utah under In the Image Clothing Company for the sake of the beautiful, diverse nature and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. A lot of reasons why we love Utah, okay? And so we'll get people into nature and dogs into nature through poodle parade events. Come for the reason we're having the events. Don't come for us as far as In the Image Clothing Company's team goes. But if you want to come, we'll do some cool things, you know. So just check scheduling on InTheImageClothingCompany.com, wherever you can find our 5-word company name, okay? In the Image Clothing Company, no spaces, basically just one word, but all 5 words right together. And specific things like clean the creek or rid the rubbish subcategories of poodle parade events, things for the environment. So it's just, you know, like I'm saying, there's a lot to this, man. There's a lot to what In the Image Clothing Company is, or not just a clothing company. I say it like this to get the point across.